Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe, here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And we're continuing the Silmarillion podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing what came after that great speech by Feanor. We discussed it into the ground last time. Now it's to discuss into the ground what followed. After the speech, the seven sons of Feanor, led by Maethros, ended up leaping forward to swear an oath, the oath of Feanor, which was to doom them for the rest of their lives. This oath, as stated last time, I think, ended up being all about bringing Varda and Manwë as witnesses and swearing in the name of Eru LOTR, an oath whose likeness was never to be repeated, nor should it be. The trouble is, right after the oath, you had Fingon and Turgon who spoke out against Feanor, and swords were drawn. There is a beautiful friendship there, but Fingon was a disastrous king. Turgon was to be even worse. We then have Finarfin and Orodreth, father and son, trying to kind of calm everyone down. Finrod, surprisingly, joins Turgon in speaking out against Feanor, partially out of friendship with Turgon. Galadriel is excited to leave, and Fingon is of the same opinion as Galadriel. Angrod and Agnor basically swear that they'll follow Fingon. So you have a very confusing set of friendships and bromances between the children of the three brothers. This is a very complex series of relationships. Fingon and Turgon are fairly close. Finarfin and Orodreth have a bromance between father and son. Finrod is apparently fairly close to Turgon, just as Fingon is in turn close to Galadriel. And Angrod and Agnor really like Fingon. These latter two are sons of Finarfin. I had to go over all that because it's a fairly complex series of friendships and relationships. Fingolfin, though, doesn't really want to go. He doesn't really want to go, but he's basically forced into it, and his arm is twisted by Fingon. So the father has to cover for the mistakes of the son, and father has to also look out for his people, because a lot of them are going to follow Feanor into disaster. The war horn is sounded, the leaguer is broken, and everybody charges forward. Feanor is leading the charge with his own host. Fingolfin is following. The host ends with Finarfin, who's just going, "This is a bad idea, this is a bad idea," with Feanor arriving, not stopping till he reaches Alqualonde, which is the city of the Telerielves. It's the main seaport of Valinor. It's the main trading site between Middle-earth and Valinor. Feanor demands the swan boats. He's told, "No, to us, these are as precious as the Silmarils were to you. Please don't try to take them. We're not giving them to you." Now, they don't say that they're not open to negotiations. They just say you can't just take them. And Feanor basically decides to take a page out of Morgoth's book and says, "Gimme, it's mine! It's mine!" Or, "They're mine!" and makes a grab for them. Olwe calls upon Osei and Weenan. Osei cannot intervene because the Valar have forbidden direct intervention, grudgingly in this situation, I imagine. And they're probably shocked because they're staring at Feanor going, "What the heck?" What follows is a massacre of the Telerielves who, quite frankly, did nothing wrong. This is a very grim part of this chapter. Fingon, upon arrival, says, "Let's charge forward and back up Feanor and Maethros." Fingolfin is dragged into the fighting against his will, and he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know who started the fight, although I think he's pretty suspicious of Feanor, and he's dragged in kicking and screaming into the massacre. Galadriel participates on the side of the Telerielves, her relatives on that side of the family. She participates as best she could, and Feanor seizes the boats. Finarfin arrives only to take one look at all this and goes, "Nope," and nopes back to Tyrion. He's the smart one. And Mandos appears to warn everyone, to tell them, "What have you done? This shall only end in doom and sorrows. You're never going to see the end of your suffering after this." A lot of people say this is a doom he casts upon the Noldor. I'm not entirely of the opinion that it is. It seems more like he's warning them, this isn't going to end well. But on the other hand, from the perspective that it is a doom, it's a pretty harsh thing to do, as many were dragged in kicking and screaming against their will. See Fingolfin, and I'd argue the sons of Finarfin. Thus, the boats set off, and this is not the end of Feanor's crimes, as he basically sneers at Mandos and says, "Bah! Let the cowards keep the city."
Mandos was essentially, "This is your last out. Get out while you can. You will not be punished.
And what happens is that Feanor takes the boats, traps his younger half-brother, along with 70% of those who came with them, on the Helgaraxe, the Hell Ice, and betrays them, takes the boats off a great distance, crosses to Middle-earth. Thereupon, Middle-earth, he sets fire to the swan boats and laughs as one who is fey, that is to say, laughing madly, or cackling, after Maethras tries to stop him, telling him, what of Fingon and the rest? Are we going to go back to them? No, he dooms a great deal of his people indifferently and says, not my problem. Because most of the people have begun to speak out against Feanor and were saying, should we go back? Feanor doesn't seem right in the head. This is why he traps them, and they see the blaze of the boats, and Fingolfin curses his brother, realizing what he has done. But Fingolfin, credit to him, refuses to abandon his people. In turn, some are to die, such as Fingolfin's daughter-in-law, Turgon's wife. As to Feanor, he reaches Middle-earth. And that's the end of this chapter. What did you think?
I still think that this is rather Greek, and there's an aspect of Norse.
Oh, yeah.
Where Feanor goes into madness over ego.
And I do suspect there was some amount of hatred towards Fingolfin that motivated his actions. It's not just hatred against Fingolfin, but also hatred against those who spoke out against him.
I can't help but think of Caligula.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of madness on the part of Feanor that is rather like the terrible emperors of Rome, such as Caligula.
Pretty much telling them, if you're not going to support me, I'm going to make sure that either you are going to support me,
or you're doomed.
Or you're doomed.
There's no thought to the repercussions of his actions here. He doesn't care, and that makes him terrifying. The surviving Noldor who remain with Fingolfin basically elect him their High King. As to Finarfin, he ends up King of the Noldor in Tirion, with the King of the Vanyar as High King of the Elves over there in Valinor. So the Elves now have multiple High Kings and multiple kings, even more so than before.
Part of me does wonder that if Feanor were to end up in Hades' realm, what kind of punishment Hades would set up for him.
Don't know. It'd probably be pretty horrid. That said, Mandos comes up with a pretty good punishment later. Feanor is left for all eternity to brood alone over what he's done. Given one single out, if he agrees, when the time comes to destroy the Silmarils and to apologize to everyone he has sinned against and repent, he's free to go.
Destroy what he fought for, and the ultimate form of humility.
Yep, but this is where we're getting into the Dagor Dagorath, where at the end of the world, Feanor does it. He destroys the Silmarils and revives the trees with his own hands. Pretty important, but we're going to get to the Dagor Dagorath eventually, but not today. Tell us what you think of this video, and don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Ungoliant destroying the trees.